think that's one of the main things, is not to give up. And your first book is not going to be your best book. I mean, that's just all there is to it. It's not going to be your best book. As April mentioned, I did Puppy Pete first. I do plan to eventually, one day, if I ever have time to do it, go back and kind of redo Puppy Pete, now that I know what I know. You know, because you don't know what you don't know when you're starting out.
Rachel Hilz is here with us today. She and I have been, prior to this meeting, we're together kind of going through some of the things that she's launching. She is on track to release 5 books this year. For a busy mom who is, you know, has so much on her plate, I'm just amazed, always amazed at the beautiful stuff that Rachel is pulling together. So I would love to kind of maybe just highlight for Rachel some of the stuff that you've been working on. And maybe it would be cool to just give some advice, Rachel, for those who want to be able to have more than one book in a year. Like, what are some of the secrets that you've incorporated to being able to do this? And it's not sleeping, right?
Well, I mean, sometimes it's not sleeping, if I'm honest, but April is my secret weapon, for one thing. She has my back, and I know she has my back. So if things get too much, I will send April a message and say, can I please get some extra help on this? So April helps me out a lot. Building a good team, I think, is number one. You need to try out different people, and you need to be willing to let people go if they're not a great fit. And you need to find the people that fit with you really well. I have an editor that I adore, and I know that she's going to give me the stuff that I can work with in a way that keeps my book, keeps the integrity of my book, doesn't, you know, give me back something that wasn't what I wrote. I work with Bobby. And here's the other thing, build relationships, because when I first started working with Bobby, I don't think we were a great fit right out the door, right out the gate. We worked to develop that relationship where she knows what I like and I know what she expects from me. And we communicated, and I told her, you know, I would like to be the one to fix the issues, because I wanted to write. I didn't want somebody to write it for me. So you need to be willing to communicate. You need to be willing to have some slightly uncomfortable conversations sometimes.
Yeah. And so when you mentioned Bobby, I just put in the chat here, we're talking about Bobby Hinman, who is my go-to children's book editor. I'll post the contact info for Bobby, but it is fairybook.lady@gmail.com. And she is amazing. I love it. And yeah, I like the tip, Rachel, where, I mean, you're not always going to be a perfect fit out of the gate, but your voice, you have to communicate what's working for you and what's not. How long have you been working with Bobby now as your children's book editor?
I have been working with Bobby for 3 years, and she better never retire on me, because I just absolutely love her, and I need her. So yes, Bobby is incredible, just incredible, and extremely reasonable priced too. And then, like I said, build your team. I have illustrators now that I go to immediately before I even bother looking elsewhere. I mean, yes, it might be nice to incorporate a different style, but as April said, I've got children, and it takes time to find a new editor or illustrator rather, and it takes time to build a new relationship. And I've got 3 illustrators now that I work with that I have good relationships with, so it's just easier to stay with them than it is to look outside of that. But yeah, not to say I won't look outside of that later on, but.
And then having a graphic design team that you can trust, and that's going to be able to format those books for you, so that if you upload, you're not going to get error after error after error. I know that takes weeks. Rachel, you have a lot of projects going on in parallel typically. What's your process like? And maybe there's not a process. Maybe it's just getting it all out there, and when things are in your head, getting it out and just getting it into this, you know, kind of railroad tracks we put together with our book publishing.
Well, one thing I can say is that when I first started, I was overwhelmed with the processes. And now I sort of know where I am most of the time. I do get lost sometimes when you have multiple projects going and you're, where was I with that particular project? Because you've got 3 or 4 happening at the same time. They're all in different stages of development. But for the most part, you know what needs to be done after you've done a few. And you can usually pick up and find where you left off relatively easily. I take a lot of notes. That's one thing I do, is I take a lot of notes. I have checklists everywhere. So instead of writing all the steps, because if you write all the steps from the beginning, it's overwhelming. I'll write down like the next 5 to 10 steps for that particular book. And I'll work through those next 5 to 10 steps. And then okay, what next? And then every now and then I will have a meeting with April where I say, am I missing something? Because I feel like I might be missing something.
Right.
And we go over and we look and we just make sure that we've got all our ducks in a row.
How helpful has it been incorporating Amazon ads into growing your sales for your books?
For me, it's been essential because I don't only have children, I have children with special needs. So I'm not able to go, to these conferences. I am not able to collaborate the same way as some other people are. So Amazon ads have been completely essential for me. And it's where I put majority of my effort.
The first Christmas book that you released was a huge success with regard to sales, and it kind of just catapulted the whole idea of we need to keep going with these Christmas books. Can you tell us about Santa's Lost Reindeer, and what are some of the things you think contributed to the sales, and maybe just share a little bit about that book launch and the results with regard to your first Christmas?
I think what contributed to Santa's Lost Reindeer more than anything else was I had a strong cover. I got a lady called Melinda. Oh, I can't remember.
Melinda Martin. Yeah, Melinda Martin did the design of the cover design. She is amazing as well.
And she nailed it. She nailed that cover. And I think that's what did it for me, as I've just got an amazing cover. It looks great on a thumbnail. It has a little bit of humor. I think the kids love it, and I think the adults like it. So I think I just, some of it is I lucked out. And then it's it's a Santa book, everybody loves Santa. So I think that's part of it. And then I did put an awful lot of money into advertising. I'm not actually sure how much money I put into advertising, but it was thousands of dollars, and it did make a return.
What was the return like that first year with Santa's Lost Reindeer?
So I think Canadian, because I am Canadian, but I made about 50,000 Canadian.
And the funny thing about that is we released the Puppy Pete, and it was kind of, a little bit of a fizzle, right? Yeah. And then you didn't give up, and that got to the next level.
Oh, I think that's one of the main things, is not to give up. And your first book is not going to be your best book. I mean, that's just all there is to it. It's not going to be your best book. As April mentioned, I did Puppy Pete first. I do plan to eventually, one day, if I ever have time to do it, go back and kind of redo Puppy Pete, now that I know what I know. Because you don't know what you don't know when you're starting out.
So tell us about the series that you have, the various different series that you're working on, and what's coming up for the release this year.
We did Santa's Lost Reindeer. Then we did Santa's Lost Sleigh. And going back to how important the cover is, I messed up on the cover. I knew that Santa's Lost Reindeer was a really good cover and a really strong cover. So I tried to model my second book after the first book cover-wise. And I did it too closely. It was too close. I think what happened was people thought I have that book already. And they didn't realize it was the second book because it was just too close, too similar. So I'm doing a cover redesign on Santa's Lost Sleigh this year, where the cover is going to be completely different, but still have the same elements, some of the same elements, because I want it to be very clear that it is part of a collection, but it needs to be like different colored. If you're doing a series, make sure people know it's a different book. Like, that's my advice to you, because it really affected the sales. But yes, we have Santa's Lost Sleigh is coming out with a cover redesign. Santa's Lost Elves is going to be the new book in the series. And again, a very different cover design. I've used the same lettering to try to pull them together, but all the colors are different and what's going on the front cover is quite different. I've got 3 books for the Wee Bit Sticky series. That was inspired by my daughter because she can spread a sticky item like you would not believe. It is a talent. So she was having a lollipop and she was just covered in sticky, like you would not believe it. And the lollipop fiasco was born. And then after that came the cotton candy fiasco and then the candy cane fiasco. So I hope to do next year, I hope to do a Halloween book because, it's candy and sticky and I figure it'll fit in nicely.
I love that.
And hit another holiday. Yeah, so that's one of my pieces of advice too, is if you can hit a holiday, that's helpful.
Now, I remember with the first candy cane fiasco and these other series, it didn't take off with sales right out of the gate. It's been taking time, but I know earlier you shared with me that that's now one of your best sellers. It's even overtaking your Santa's Lost Reindeer now.
At the moment, the candy cane fiasco is taking over Santa's Lost Reindeer, yes. And I'm starting to see trickle down into the other books in the series because the candy cane fiasco is selling.
So between the candy cane fiasco plus so we had Santa's Lost Reindeer, Santa's Lost Sleigh, and now we're also just getting ready to publish Santa's Lost Elves.
Yes.
So I think that synergy is going to be incredible. I can't wait to track what happens with the ads and everything and how well this brand, helps to pull all of that together because you're building quite a brand. What is the total number of books you have, Rachel, at this point?
I think the Bigfoot Chase is number 10.
So building a brand, an author brand that is, connecting with your audience and continuing to move forward with this, having a dream team that will help you to continue to move things forward. Number one important thing is it's not always success right out of the gate and not giving up, because giving up, if Rachel had just said, you know what, my life is too busy. I tried this, it didn't work. I'm just not cut out for this. Then look at that $50,000 profit that came that following, with the first Christmas release would have not been possible. And now all of this branding that she's doing and building up her author brand is just an amazing opportunity. And people are discovering these books. They're discovering Rachel, the author, and maybe they're going to find Santa's Lost Elves and they're going to love it. And they're going to say, what else does this author have? So they're going to see all these other, 9 other books that they can purchase or gift for the Christmas season as well. So, branding, multiple books, keep it going, keep growing. Other tips, Rachel, that you would say for new authors as we're waiting on some questions?
Well, I think you're right in that it's extremely important to keep going because every single book you put out there, every single book that's out there circulating is an opportunity for somebody to find you. And if you've only got one out there, well, there's an awful lot of books on Amazon to have one book out there and hope people find you with one book. I'm going to be up to 12 this year. I wish it was 100, and you need to get that footprint as large as you can get it. Having said that, I think it's also really important not to go too fast and lower the quality of your writing. You need to make sure that what you're putting out is good work.
John asks, do you have an idea of how many copies that you sold and how long did it take for you to write the 10 books?
I do not know how many copies I sold of everything. I was looking up Santa's Lost Reindeer just the other day because I needed some specs on it. And I'm over 20,000 copies sold on Santa's Lost Reindeer right now. So I'm going on to 3 years now. But Santa's Lost Reindeer, I actually wrote when I was 16 and just kind of had the manuscript hanging around. I've wanted to write my entire life and went off and did a more sensible career. And then got to the point where I could finally, I wasn't doing my career anymore. I was staying at home with the kids. So then it was like, okay, well, I'm going to write. And, you know, as fate would have it, I joined author group on Facebook and I kept seeing this lady come up named April. I was like, okay, I'm going to take this woman's course. But in fairness, some of these manuscripts have been kicking around as rough drafts for an awful long time. So they all haven't been written right now. I am a writer that doesn't write for a long time. I have to be in a certain mindset to be able to write. I think we all do it differently. I think some of us write a little bit all the time, and it takes us a year to write a book. And then there's people like me who I don't write. I cannot sit down. I cannot force it. I cannot make it happen. And then one day I'll get an idea and I will write a book in that one day. And then, of course, the editing, of course, takes longer.
When inspiration strikes, that's kind of when you move with your writing, and then passing things over to Bobby as they come in, so that we're kind of building up that, okay, we've got 3 books, and we do go through, you know, with, like you said, with the illustrators, once you've got that relationship, they know how to work with you. They've got your style down. It's really easy to then turn that into a much more smooth process.
Yes. Oh, there's no doubt that by the time you get to your 10th book, it's way smoother than your first, second, or third. It's just way smoother because, like, right now I have relationships with my illustrator where they know how much updating I want. They know if they can leave me and not give me updates and then just go, hey, here's your final copy to review. They know how I like to work. And I know how they like to work. I know what to expect. Like when I work with Lewis doesn't want to be bothered, and he doesn't want to be given a whole map out of what I want. He wants me to give him the manuscript and tell him how many pages he has to work with. And then he does it. Yeah. And he doesn't want me to have any input until he shows me what he's come up with. And that's fine with me.
Yeah. And we're speaking of Luis Perez. For those that don't know, he has worked on the Wee Bit Sticky series and continues to be just an amazing illustrator for not just Rachel, but a number of other authors that I've worked with. He's on my pre-vetted list of illustrators, along with a number of others that I share with, you know, folks that come work through me through coaching or with my 12-week course, which, by the way, I'll put a plug in, is coming soon for early bird enrollment. I do have a question here from Homespun Stories. How much time or money did it take with advertising before you started to see that significant profit?
Okay, so I'm going to give you a long-winded answer here. I don't know if this is what you want. It's what you're going to get. So when you start with advertising, you have to be willing to sink. I think my number, now it probably is different for everybody, what you're comfortable with. I am willing to lose $1,000 on every single book when I first put it out to see how it's going to work with advertising. And not every book will advertise well. I put a book out, I put $1,000 into that book. I give it a chance because it takes a while to index and all. It is not immediate. I think it takes about a month, honestly, before you start seeing whether those ads are going to profit you or not. And you have to be willing to sweat it for a little bit and see if that money starts coming back to you or not before you pull it. Because if you pull it too soon, you've wasted the money on your indexing. You know, you need to allow it to index. So that's my personal number. I give a book $1,000 to see if it's going to perform. I have currently, I think, about 6 books that perform fairly well on ads, and the rest I don't bother advertising anymore. I've actually gone back and put another one up. So Dream Fairies is an example of one of my books that just doesn't perform well on Amazon ads. I don't know why it doesn't perform well on Amazon ads. I tried it a year ago. It didn't perform very well. I've just given it another shot this year and it's still not picking up. So I'm probably not going to advertise that one again. I'm just going to hope that it gets some sales as I make a name for myself.
Yeah. This is really interesting question too, because I have some authors who will say, I want to budget $100 a month. And they get really nervous if they see like I've spent $100 and I've not made that back plus. They're ready to give up within, a week or two. There's no patience, like we said about giving up on your stories and on, continuing your writing. I think with ads, I completely agree with you, Rachel, that if you're not spending the time to give it a chance, and you could be giving up too early. And like we just said about Rachel's, one of her most successful books, and that successful story was $50,000 worth of profit, which I can tell you would never have happened without Amazon ads.
Oh, no, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. But I think that it takes a while to index. And I am guilty myself. I'm lucky that I have an extremely supportive husband, and he will say, it's indexing. Don't do anything, because I start going in and messing with it because it's not doing anything. It's not making money yet. And I start getting nervous about putting the money out when I'm not seeing it come in. So I'm more likely to turn those ads off if I didn't have my husband going, it's still indexing, leave it alone. So I have him to thank for that a lot, because he sort of understands the idea of indexing.
Mhm.
So he will tell me, get your hands out of there, leave it
Yeah.
alone longer.
Denise asks, she says, I don't have a series. Is that a downside? What do you think do you think your series has helped you continue to be discovered with other books?
So as I said, I write when inspiration hits. So I have quite a few freestanding books, but I can tell you they don't sell anywhere near as well as my series do. Like I said, somebody finds Santa's Lost Elves or Santa's Lost Sleigh or Santa's Lost Reindeer, and they go to look and they go, oh, there's two other books in this series. And my kid liked Santa's Lost Reindeer, so he'll probably like Santa's Lost Sleigh. Or the sticky books I'm finding are starting to pick up quite well. And I really think it's because they're all in the same series, and people are like, oh, this is a cute little story plot where the kid gets sticky and calamity ensues, and
We have a question here also. Are you exclusive with Amazon?
I am in KDP Select, so I do that, and then I have my hardcover through Ingram that links to Amazon. If I could, I would do an offset print. There's a couple of things that make that hard for me. Number one, I do not have a place to store books. Number two, I live in Canada, and shipping costs me more than the value of the book at full price just to ship across the border into the States. So that does not work out very well. And I just don't feel like I have the life to allow for the extra work that an offset print does. So I have done all this through print on demand.
When it comes to going wide with your ebooks or something like that, then it would involve draft to digital and pushing out to multiple different places. Would that overly complicate things? And has that led to you just saying, I'm going to keep it simple?
About 99.9% of my decisions are based on keeping my life simple and streamlined. Like I said before, I don't have one very special needs child. I have two. I don't have extra moments in my day. So I had to make this fit my life. Having said that, one of the things that I want to revisit, or an idea that I've had a few times that I'd like to revisit, is to see what Jay Molesky offers, because apparently Jay Molesky does printing and warehousing and fulfillment and all.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that would be, and we've talked about this, I know, but iapcbooks.com is Jay Molesky's company, and he does print very high quality print books in China. He's kind of the middleman that will help you. He negotiates amazing prices. And if you can get the books of yours that are selling really well, if you can print through him, get your prices down to like $2 or less per book, and all of a sudden, and he's doing the warehousing and fulfillment for you, that can really simplify things. I would say that's probably 3 times the profit of doing that than sticking with purely KDP.
Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
you're going to get a nicer product.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And talk about brand building, right? When you have those beautifully printed copies, which are much better than you can get with KDP, I think it really makes a difference with your brand. But you've got to start somewhere, and you've got to start figuring out what things are going to sell. Because if you would have taken Dream Fairies and printed 2,500 books, they'd be sitting for a long time. And it was, but you've seen through testing through print on demand, the power of which ones are selling, which ones are not. And you've been doing this a few years, so you know how much you've sold last year and how much you're expected to sell moving forward. So I think that can be a huge benefit. But yes, being open to the offset print and warehousing and doing things that way, that can really simplify. It can be the best of both worlds for that as well.
Yeah, that's what I think. And I do not regret doing print on demand for 3 years. I'm still doing print on demand. There are some things that will drive you crazy about print on demand, like getting your book with upside down pages occasionally and that kind of thing. It just happens.
One of our folks on YouTube has said she's like 90 something % through the book, but she's just kind of stuck on finishing it. And she's wondering if you have any tips about, how you get through that kind of a challenge.
Is she speaking about writing it?
Yeah, the writing of the book and the writing of the book and kind of feeling like she's blocked from being able to finish.
Well, I think that everybody is very different in their writing style and the way that they do this. Honestly, if it were me, I would put it aside and take a week or two break. I wouldn't even look at it. And try to do something completely different, get your mind off of it, and then go back and reread it. And hopefully when you reread it, you're like, oh, this is what I need to do with this. Right. But personally, that's what I would do, because if I try to force it, it is not going to happen.
Denise is saying, is Formax comparable to the printer in the warehouse that you're talking about? So I can answer that for you, because I've had a number of my authors print with Formax. Not even close. The quality of what you'll get through IAPC books and other offset printers that are like China based and really high quality. I mean, you have to have really high quality printers, and we've kind of vetted a lot of these. There are some China based printing or overseas printing that is not high quality, but Jay prints with ones that are used by traditional publishers all the time. He works really hard has built a relationship, and you can check out some of the books that are printed with IAPC books on that website. So I do recommend what they do, and the quality of what they create is, wow, just phenomenal. Not to say you couldn't go direct to a China-based printer and get that same kind of quality, but what Jay provides and the guidance he offers and that whole kind of taking care of all of that stuff for you and giving you a place to store them and even fulfill and send your books to Amazon when things come in. You do have to pay a little bit for that service, but that can take so much off your plate and give you the best of both worlds. Formax is a great choice for short quantities of books. So if you want to print 50 or 100 or 200, probably once you get to the 300 to 500 kind of mark, I would probably go with more of a different choice, only because there are ways of really driving down the price much better with some of the larger offset printers versus Formax. But Formax is a great one. And I do have an interview with Kristen from Formax posted on my YouTube channel, and she talks about Formax and their printing options. It's a great opportunity for people to have like huge volumes of print, but that want something that they can be proud of to take to events and things like that. So I think they're valid and they are on my list for a reason, but the quality, if you're looking at one from Formax, one from the IAPC, is just amazing. Like the difference between KDP book and Formax is huge too, right? It's much better quality than KDP or Offset or Ingram Spark. But then there's at least that much of a distinction between some of the books that I'm seeing coming out of the IAPC. Tell us about The Trouble with Leggings and how that idea came to be. It is
Okay.
approaching one of my favorite books that you've put together, and I just love it so much.
Trouble with leggings is my daughter loves to wear leggings. I think part of it is because she likes the tight sensory feel of them, but we always struggle with putting them on. And she wants to do things herself. So we do struggle with putting them on. And she's always stuck in these silly leggings and, you know, falling around while she's putting them on and all this, but does not want mom's help. So that's where the idea stemmed from. Of course, that's where that's all the reality that's in the book. The rest is sheer nonsense. So it's a cascading effect book where she steps on the cat who goes after the dog, who runs to the barnyard and bites the prize hog. And, you know, it goes on and on and on like that. The horse breaks through the fence. They end up down at the store in the candy section. They raid the candy section. Dad goes, pays the huge bill. It has a section where it's a huge amount of animals. I can't even remember how many, 25 cows, a hog and horse, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it is filled with animals and
so-
beautiful illustrations.
Yeah.
I
I
love it.
think Ramesh might have wanted to kill me at the time because I was like, no, actually, I think it's 35 cows, 10 hogs, and a horse or something, or 10,
Right.
I can't even remember, but it's a huge amount of animals. And I'm like, no, Ramesh, I want the kids to be able to check my work and count. I want 35 cows on this spread, you
Right.
know?
It was
So
hilarious.
I don't know how he pulled it off, but he did. He got all these animals on this spread and it looks like complete chaos and calamity. And I love it. And then they go to the store, Dad pays the huge bill, they round their animals up who are on a sugar buzz, they go home, and it ends with, you know, tomorrow I think I'll wear sweatpants instead.
Sense of humor is just so fun. And I think that's part of your brand, like with these fiasco books and Santa's Lost Reindeer. Like we have some hilarious scenes that start with your imagination, and then your illustrators have been able to really take that to the whole next level. And that's what I think people love. So here's Santa's Lost Reindeer, beautifully designed cover. The story is so much fun, and we won't go into all the details, but then with the fiascos, candy cane fiasco, like you said, that is starting to overtake Santa's Lost Reindeer for sales. I just love the silliness. And this is Luis Perez. Ramesh Ram is another illustrator. He's the founder of Prayen Animation, which I use a lot. I just love their work, and I just can't say enough great things about Prayen. But yeah, we've got these. And then tell us, Rachel, because you never cease to amaze me. I'm Grateful for You just came out. Tell us what's unique about this book, because it's totally different from the others. So tell us what you did here.
Well, what's unique about that book is that I drew it. So
you illustrated your own book.
yeah.
I was like blown away, multi-talented. So you did this. And by the way, this is not your first illustrated book, What's Wrong with This Book, which is Kyrie's favorite book. She's got it with her constantly. I just sent you the video review that she did of your book. She loves it. It's simple, little spider illustration. What would you recommend for people that want to kind of play around a little bit with drawing and creating some of their own books?
Okay, well, number one, don't think you can't draw, because I would have told you before these came out. And a matter of fact, I'd still tell you that all I can draw are stick figures. Like, I'm not a drawer. But my sister is an artist, and she gave me the best advice I've ever had. She told me when I said to her, I can't draw, she said, that's because you're trying to draw it in one go. She says, and you have to be willing to erase. She says, you have to be willing to draw a line 20 times until it looks right. So that's what I was told by my artist sister, is that drawing is not about drawing, it's about erasing. And that changed my focus. And then lo and behold, I can draw. I am using Procreate, and this is the other thing I would tell you is that don't sell yourself short on what you're able to learn. A year ago or 2 years ago, I would have told you that I could never use Procreate. I could never, ever do it. I'm not technical. I could not do that. But I found that a lot of YouTube tutorials. So if you get yourself set up with an iPad and Procreate, there are phenomenal YouTube tutorials. So that's how I learned how to do everything, was in YouTube.
I don't know how the heck you find time for all of this stuff. And I think you're just amazing, Rachel. And here we've got a number of these books. You've created your own activity books using Canva as well, right? Creating different things and playing around. You've also had things translated. And tell us a little bit about foreign rights, because Santa's Lost Reindeer was picked up by foreign rights. You've sold the foreign rights on those as well, right?
Yes. So Santa's Lost Reindeer, I've sold the foreign rights for Spain and Greece so far, which is odd for a rhyming book. I think the only reason why that happened was because it was selling so well. So they were willing to overlook the fact that it's rhyming, I think is what happened. But yes, generally don't expect, I now April, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think generally don't expect to get picked up by a foreign rights publisher if you're rhyming.
Yes. So I had somebody else contact me today and say, with the same foreign representative that you're working with. And they said, I think this is spam. And I was like, no, this is, Montse. And, she represents authors. She helps you with getting the foreign rights. How did that come about? Did they contact you? And just I think they monitor sales and they look and see what's coming independently published that they might want to then release in their own country.
So how it happened with me was I actually thought it was spam as well. I got an email from a Greek publishing company who said, have you sold the rights to translate first translation into Greek rather? I actually contacted April and said, I sent her an email, I forwarded it to her and said, is this legit? So April messaged me back and said, get a hold of Montse and tell her that you've received this email. So that's what I did. I got a hold of Montse. I sent Montse the email and then Montse took it from there. And then after I got it actually happened the same way for the Spanish publisher. So after the Greek publisher emailed me, the Spanish publisher emailed me maybe a month or two later, and I just forwarded the email to Montse.
Are these contracts for the foreign rights lucrative? Or, is it hundreds of dollars? Is it thousands of dollars? What can people expect when these kinds of things happen?
I don't really know yet. So you get an initial payout, which is about $1,000 to $2,000. I think it was about $1,200 for Spain. And I think Greece was only around $900, but we are talking US funds. So, in Canadian, it's a bit more. And then you get a percentage
Of the sale.
Yeah. So you get a original payout and then you get a percentage of sales. This will be the first year that my books are on sale in a different country. So I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, we'll have to have you come back and share about that as things progress there. This has been a really excellent conversation. Thank you for sharing. And for those of you who have not checked out Rachel's books, these are some of the best gift books. If you just want to giggle, if you're not looking for lessons or necessarily anything that's going to teach your child something other than create that bond, the closeness, it's all about fun, and you'll laugh and you'll find just amazing illustrations. And I just love that as a brand. It's not all about lessons or teaching things, especially those that beat you over the head with the lessons. Rachel's books, I find, are the ones that my grandkids keep bringing back to me to read over and over again. and they love them. So that's the kind of brand that you have created, Rachel. And I know I love it. I love reading and bonding with the kids over those stories. And so I highly recommend, for those of you who are looking for Christmas gifts, you couldn't order a better gift for a child. And especially if you want to really use that for reluctant readers or just bonding, and a great gift for teachers as well, for the classroom, great opportunities to also help feed into this amazing journey that Rachel has had so far. Thank you so much
Rachel.
for sharing with us.
Thank you.